Go ahead.
At the age of 8 years old, I got my very first skateboard. I went and I got it at a thrift shop, and that was the coolest thing in the world. It had bumpers on it, and it was like my pride and joy. And with that skateboard, me and my buddies would get together every weekend or every day after school, and we had these little jumps, and we'd get out there and try these tricks that we saw in the X Games, or just flip the skateboard or whatever. We just had lots of fun. And I remember I got really into it, and my next birthday I asked for like all the name brand gear. I asked for cool helmet, all the other kids were wearing, cool skateboard. And one day my dad pulled me into his bedroom and he said, "Let's have a chat." And he sat me up on his bed and pulled up a chair, and he looked me in the eyes and he said a piece of advice that I think I'll always remember. He told me that he'll always support me and that he loves me more than anything, and that the day that I choose to become a skateboarder, this is the day that I'll lose his support. And what he meant by that is, the kids that go to the skate park, they all have, like mohawks, and we're smoking and swearing. And he says, I think what he meant by that is if you become that person, that's when you lose my support, when you try to be a part of that scene rather than being yourself. And so what I drew from that was this advice to be you, to be yourself, to be the person that you were created as. Now, I want you guys to just ask yourself a question. And if you don't mind, I'd like to hear one or two examples. But I'd like you to ask yourself, when's a time in your life when you chose to be somebody else in a negative way? Anybody think of anything you'd like to share? Go ahead.
I remember our soccer team in high school, the popular group, varsity girls, senior girls, they always had something to say about somebody. And being on varsity, not really being their friends, but being on varsity, I felt like I just needed to blend in and mesh with them and not really stand out. And so I'd go along with what they were saying and be like, yeah, that's so true.
And how'd you feel when you did that?
I felt gross. Like I felt like those are my friends that they were talking about, and I felt out of like I didn't have control.
Yeah, and that's something that's a great point that you just made, is that control. We lose control sometimes of ourselves when we try to jump in and be a part of things that really aren't who we are, right? I wanted to use a similar example. My sister, same thing in high school. She had a group of friends that she wanted to be cool, and these kids were like the punk rockers, the kids with the dog collars and the studs or whatever on them. She really tried to be like them, and because of that, she chose to make some really bad decisions that have affected her life even to this day. It's about 9 years later, and she's had psychological and mental issues from it. And so that's just the point, is when we try to be somebody else and we try to change who we are for the negative, we really lose a lot. And I think some of our influences in today are supermodels or professional athletes, movie stars, even the entertainment that we watch. We watch TV shows, we watch movies. I think sometimes when we watch those things, we can be affected. Also, something that I thought about was even the neighborhoods we grow up in. I know the neighborhood I grew up in, Gilbert, Arizona. You would look down the street, and every mom driving to the grocery store, driving anywhere, would have an SUV with 20-inch chrome rims. And if you didn't have rims, you must have been struggling financially. It was really weird. Even my mom had rims on her car. That was the funniest thing. And so I feel like, the society and the people and things that we fill our lives with are kind of things that we, that's where we want to be. And we try and reach, and we try and do all these things, even though sometimes they're not attainable. How many of us are really going to be celebrities, right? And so I call this the peer pressure of society. And we all have this peer pressure. There's always going to be variables in each of our lives that really try and pull us in to change certain aspects of ourselves. Now, what's really at stake, and this is something I was really trying to think about while I was coming up with these principles and these ideas, is our happiness. I really truly feel that our happiness is the biggest play when we choose to be somebody else. I can think of examples, even when in my skateboarding days, going to the skate park and throw a swear word out there. And same thing you just said, made me feel gross. Didn't make me feel happy, didn't make me feel good about myself. And so today I wanted to also kind of tell you how is it possible? It's time to be real, right? It's time to find out who we are and exactly, and so how do we be real? We discover who each and every one of us are. We discover what we like, what we don't like, how we want to dress. How cool would it be if we didn't have, like a magazine to look at like fashion models, or we didn't have like a store to go look at a mannequin. We could just be like, hey, I like that shirt. What would we choose? And so it's something to just kind of think about in your own life. Discover the things you do and you don't like. Another thing is realize that each and every one of us are individuals, and that we've been given certain traits and gifts to benefit each and every one of our lives and people around us. I like this image a lot. I don't know if you guys have seen this art piece, but there's actually several different sculptures. And this guy, he takes a bunch of junk and he puts it all together and he welds it. And when he puts a thing of light on against it, you see a silhouette of people. And that's kind of how I picture each and every one of us. There's none of us are the same. There's all these different little pieces to each and every one of us, and they make up a whole person that's really important and really special. The next thing is to be prepared, and be prepared to be yourself. I want you guys to think about that for a second. It's kind of an interesting, thing to. It's kind of, I don't know if you guys know exactly what it means, but what I think it means is in those situations, let's say we're watching a movie. I really like Brad Pitt. I think he's a stud of an actor. So let's say I'm watching Brad Pitt and he comes out on screen and he's got like a nice haircut and a beard, and I sit back and say, I need that haircut, I need that beard. And in those moments, I think being prepared to be yourself are those moments when we can see something like that and have those thoughts and be like, wait, that's not me. It's just a silly example. But I thought of another example. We're all in college. We're all exposed to different things. I think even sometimes going to BYU Idaho, we're presented with opportunities to, do stupid things that we shouldn't be doing. You go to a party and someone brings you beer, says, "Hey, just have a sip. We're all drinking beer here. It's fine." How can you be prepared to be yourself with saying, "Hey, that's not me. I don't drink beer. That's not Blake, right?" So that's what I mean by that. And that's something that each and every one of us can do today, just to have that decision, to make that in our minds, when I'm presented with an opportunity to change who I am, to be prepared to be myself. Now I want to share a couple quotes with you guys. First one's by Oscar Wilde. Be yourself, everyone else is already taken. And that just goes along with the lines that we're all individuals, and that each and every one of us has different gifts, different traits, different things that make us out, that make us special. Lastly, a quote by Albert Einstein. It says, "Only the individual can think and thereby create new values for society, nay, even set up the moral standards to which the life of the community conforms. Without creative, independently thinking and judging personalities, the upward development of society is as unthinkable as the development of the individual personality without the nourishing soil of the community." What that means is we have the power. We all have the power. And it starts with each and every one of us. It starts with the individual. We have the power to change the community, to say, hey, celebrities don't matter, professional athletes don't matter. We can make up what's important to us in our communities. And that's why I think we should, this is such an important thing, we should really try to find ourselves, be ourselves, and stay true to that person. So, be it. Thank you.